It's Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. Beautiful fall
brightening, brilliant-looking Tuesday.
New York City voters are expected to cast their ballots today.
September 11th in the news for today. Michael Jordan may be coming back.
Traffic. Jerry, how's it going this Tuesday morning?
Hi, baby. Baby, you have to listen to me carefully. I'm calling from the plane. I want to tell you I love you. Please tell my children that I love them very much. I hope to be able to see your face again, baby. I love you. Bye.
You lost track of the aircraft over? Lost track on our frequency.
Believed to be a plane crashed into the South Tower.
Has just crashed into the World Trade Center.
100-852.
Tower reports that there was a fire.
Something weird is going on
at the World Trade Center.
The World Trade Center is on fire.
23 years ago, America vowed we would never forget.
That's the area where we lost the airplane.
Oh my goodness. Oh God. There's another one.
Oh my God.
To be on purpose.
A second airplane, a 727 just rammed into the building.
The heroes that entered those buildings knowing they would likely never make it out.
Tommy, have you made it back down to the lobby? The elevator's clear. We got injured people up here on 70.
People jumping out the windows. Over there, they're jumping out the windows.
The lives lost and the families ripped apart.
Sean, it's me. I just want to let you know I love you, and I'm stuck in this building in New York.
They was waving, like trying to say, help me. Like,
the once indestructible city that became broken. And some of us vowed we'd never forget the radical ideology that caused it all.
We can't afford to raise a generation of Americans blind to the problem of radical Islam. Can you imagine what the world, we'd all be speaking German today if our grandparents didn't say Nazism is evil.
But today, Europe has broken that pledge.
Europe is reeling again from shocking Islamist extremist terrorist attacks.
Europe, it seems, has forgotten.
Police raiding a refugee housing complex near the scene of the attack.
Innocent lives were taken again in Germany.
Set upon by a mob of Middle Eastern men.
Thanks to disastrous immigration policies from Europe's far left.
Guys there are Egyptian lads, and they'll next go to onwards to Sicily.
Radical Islam is not only on the rise across the Atlantic, but it now has the potential to control it.
Be silent! Allahu Akbar!
New figures show a sharp rise in crime.
By 2060, Muslims will be the biggest religious group the world over. What are you going to do then? Actually, go post Sharia is even then?
And the men and women taking a stand against it are all now the supposed danger to their society.
A 28-year-old man has been jailed for 20 months in Leeds for stirring up religious hatred online during the riots across the country.
America, this is our future. In fact, we're well on our way. This is about tyrannical regimes willing to do whatever it takes to destroy dissent before their power becomes threatened. Europe is on a path to destruction. Tonight, I show you that America is next. Hello, America. 23 years later, that is still sobering to watch those images from September 11th, 2001. But we could use a national sobering because America in 2024 feels light years away from what we stood for in the aftermath of that horrible day in 2001. It seems as though we have completely forgotten, not just forgotten, like we don't even care anymore. We all know what's coming. We all know it. Our borders are open. We all talk about it. But we don't do anything about it. Can you imagine if ourselves from back then started talking to ourselves today? I mean, is national security and defeating terrorism even on our minds right now? Islam is growing. Do we even care? How are we doing right now? During a Senate Judiciary Committee last December, FBI Director Christopher Wray said he's never seen a time when so many threats against the U.S. are as elevated as they are right now. In June, Attorney General Merrick Garland echoed the same sentiment, saying that the threat of a terrorist attack on U.S. soil has gone up enormously since October 7th and the attack on Israel. Now, given those threats, the seriousness of those threats, it is truly remarkable how far the U.S. has regressed since 2001, the war on terror, especially when it comes to just doing basic border security. Imagine going to yourself back then and saying, 20 years from now, 22 years from now, illegal border crossings are going to reach the average of 2 million per year, the highest level in U.S. Border Patrol's 100-year history. Imagine telling somebody in 2001 that soon there would be a Biden-Harris administration that would release 5.4 million illegals into the U.S., plus an additional 1.9 million gotaways, that we would allow 7.3 million illegals. And that number would be more than the combined population of Montana, Rhode Island, Delaware, North and South Dakota, Alaska, Vermont, and Wyoming. We don't know who they are. Imagine going and telling somebody in 2001, oh yeah, not only that, but this same administration, the Biden-Harris White House, they will let slip by 375 people on the terrorist watch list. They catch them at the border and they lose some of them. We would say to our future selves, you're crazy. That would never happen. I could have told you those things in 2010, and you wouldn't have believed me. According to the Judiciary Committee report that came out last month, at least 99 illegals on the terrorist watch list have been released into American communities. Remember, it only took 19 terrorists to carry out the September 11th attacks, and look at the damage. Where our country is today is a direct result of 9/11, 2001. In this year alone, U.S. Border Patrol has already encountered over 2,000 Afghan nationals, 541 Iranians, 520 Syrians, among several other countries that have a beef with America. These are staggering numbers, and it is mind-blowing as a national security failure. But don't worry. You should be comforted that the Department of Homeland Security, which, remember, was created because of September 11th, released their information technology strategic plan for the next 4 years. And its number one goal is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, as soon as somebody like me, any conservative really, raises an objection to the Democrats' open border policy, it's automatically branded as racism by the woke mob. See, all this racism talk started when we were talking about Al-Qaeda. Oh, you're just xenophobic. You're just racist. You have a problem against Islam. You have a problem. No, we have a problem with people who want Sharia law. We've been saying that since 2002. It didn't matter to them. And then we had a problem with this race, and then that race, and that race. And that. What are you even talking about? It seems to me that calling someone racist was from the very beginning a way to Trojan horse everything, all of the destruction. You couldn't do, Osama bin Laden couldn't have planned this himself any better. It is not racist to question the sanity of open borders. You don't suddenly add over 7 million people into your population in under 4 years without serious repercussions for the nation. And that's not forecasting disaster. That's based on the chaos that is happening right now, here and especially in Europe. Let me talk about Europe here for a second. My mother used to say, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Well, let's look at our friends. After September 11th, America, we had a lot of friends all over the world, none closer than the UK. Well, let's take a peek. How are things going there? Well, 6 weeks ago in the British town of Southport, 3 young girls were stabbed and killed, and 10 others critically wounded while attending a dance class. The murders were committed allegedly by the teenage son of a Rwandan immigrant. Well, the murders set off weeks of riots and protests all across the UK, many of them focusing their anger on the government's immigration policies. They've been saying this and saying this. Why are you giving these people a pass? Why are so many coming in? They're changing everything about our culture, and they have no desire to become British citizens, British people. Well, the Southport murder suspect was born and raised in the UK. He was not an asylum seeker, as some social media rumors claimed, but the fact that the perpetrator of this horrific crime is the son of immigrants touched a very raw nerve in British society. Last year alone, 1.22 million immigrants arrived in the UK. If you've never been to the UK, you could drive, I could drive the entire country from top to bottom in a day. Immigration continues to run neck and neck with the other concern for the British public, the top one, border, immigration, and monetary policy, the economy. Sound familiar? But true to globalist DEI form, the UK government has been much more concerned about the protesters than addressing the long-term effects of immigration on the nation. Remember when we had the George Floyd riot? Kamala Harris was helping those people get bail. They burned cities down, and the media and the government were more interested in people like me who said, this has got to stop. British police have arrested now over 1,000 people connected with the riot so far, including a very dangerous 11-year-old boy. 575 people have been formally charged. The government even announced Operation Early Dawn. This is a program that will parole some prisoners early. Why? They need space in their prison for all of these new protesters. Here's a fundamental truth about immigration that the globalist progressives refuse to acknowledge. Cultures clash. They do it all the time, throughout history. And when these clashes happen, if somebody up at the top is not listening, or if somebody like the globalist progressives say it's just racism, you have problems, because it's not always racism. Globalist progressives want to erase the borders and our national identities. They've been doing it for a very long time, and they refuse to even attempt to understand that average people are okay with their cultural or national identity. They're not ashamed of it. In fact, some people actually like the history of their country. So when a nation like the UK, with its long, proud cultural heritage of traditions, churches, institutions, has a surge in Muslim population, for example, there are going to be some growing pains. Let me tell you this. In my lifetime, we will see King Charles, or whoever is most unfortunate to follow him, taken from office, and it won't be the people, taken from office and beheaded in public. That's what's coming. In my lifetime. In 2001, 3% of Britain's population was Muslim. 3%. By 2021, that percentage more than doubled. Meanwhile, in the UK's latest census, for the first time ever, less than half the population, 46%, described themselves as Christians. Here's this. Yeah. That's the call to prayer at the East London Mosque, being played outdoors on a PA system. The public broadcast of the call to prayer was first allowed in certain sections of London in 2020. Now, cities all across the UK allow it. Last year, Minneapolis became the first major city to approve the broadcasting of the call to prayer 5 times a day over loudspeakers. Where was that? Minneapolis. Who's the governor of Minnesota? Oh! New York City now allows mosques to broadcast the call to prayer on Fridays. And during the month of Ramadan last year, a small town in Virginia joined the movement.
In this town of some 1,100 residents, twice during the month of Ramadan, Adhan is recited on loudspeakers before Friday prayers. A small Muslim congregation purchased this historic building, which was built in 1800s as a church, and converted it into Al-Hussein Mosque 2 years ago.
Gee, an old church. Meanwhile, back in the UK, a 2019 report found that more than 1/3 of the British people believe that Islam is a threat to the British way of life. Of course it is. And of course, the leftist media doesn't see this as a natural human clash of very different cultures. They see an alarming rise of the far right, of racists and Nazis. Guided by DEI philosophy as the ultimate good, globalist-progressive leadership, along with their media partners, seem blind to the problems that come with the fact that 70% of immigrants to Europe last year, 70% were male. You think you have a problem with rape? Nearly 42% of those were ages 18 to 34. It's understandable that people are concerned about an immigration policy where there is a rash of headlines like this one. 26-year-old Muslim man in Bradford, England, assaulted 3 women at a gas station because their clothing and makeup wasn't traditional enough for his liking. Tell me if this ever happened with a Christian, what everybody on the planet would be saying about Christianity. But instead of prison, he got sentenced to rehab, community service, and a fine of £500. In the town of Rotherham, England, a 2014 report detailed a massive sex ring operation run primarily by Pakistani immigrants. Between 1997 and 2013, over 1,400 girls, some as young as 11, had been abducted, beaten, raped, and trafficked. According to the local government's independent report, quote, several city council staff described their nervousness about identifying the ethnic origins of the perpetrators for fear of being thought of as racist. Others remembered the clear direction from their managers not to do so. Oh. Okay, so 1,400 girls in this town. They were abducted, they were raped, they were trafficked. 1,400. Some of them as young as 11. Huh. And nobody says anything. Gee, I wonder if those 1,400 parents are out on the streets, maybe a little angry that there seems to be no justice. A Muslim man in Dublin, Ireland, sexually assaulted a woman in a restroom of a bar. The man had refused asylum, or had been refused asylum in several EU countries. And so then he eventually ended up in, where else? Ireland. An article for theblaze.com, Irish journalist John McGillen, notes that in the city of Galway, near where he grew up, Mohammed recently surpassed Michael and Martin as the most popular name for boys. He writes, and I quote, "What's happening in Ireland has become a sobering reminder of the effects of out-of-control immigration and incompetent leadership. A country that was once cohesive and orderly now struggles with overwhelmed services, strained resources, and rising tensions. This is more than a clash of values, it's a collision of civilization. The Ireland of today is unrecognizable to the Ireland of 20 years ago. Let me tell you this. Do you know why Sweden always got along, why it was always utopian, why they could do socialism and it would be all right? Because they all had the same basic background. It was not a diverse society. You know why everybody looked at America and said, wow, they've got problems? Because we were the most diverse society. It is tough, especially in a nation this size, to be diverse. But once we started saying, no, you don't have to agree with our principles, the whole thing fell apart. Why is Europe ahead of us? Because for the first time, they're very, very diverse. And they don't like it. Now, after a quick break, I want to take you to France and Germany, where the situation is amazingly worse. All right, let me tell you about Rough Greens. You love your dog. I love my dog. I want to make sure that he is happy and healthy and having all the right food. Rough Greens, ruffgreens.com/Beck, is the place you go to make sure you get that supplement that's developed by naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black. You sprinkle it on the dog's food. Contains all the good stuff your dog needs for a happy, healthier life. Now, they've got a special deal going on right now where they want to make sure your dog loves it, so you get your first trial bag for free. Now, it is a trial bag, and you just pay for shipping, but on that, it's free. And Rough Greens has some big news, especially for cat lovers like me. You want to take care of your cat? Well, Meow Greens is now out for cats. And you color me thrilled. I mean, I'm a cat lover. You're a cat lover. You should try Meow Greens. It also has a free Jumpstart trial bag for your free Rough Greens, or it's so tender, and I feel this from the heart. The best for your cat, Meow Greens. Jumpstart trial bag. All you have to do is go to ruffgreens.com/Beck or call 833-GLEN-33, 833-GLENN-33. Call them today. Okay, so we have the rape and abuse of women and children as young as 11 happening in England. It's much worse in Sweden. But now let me show you the softer side of what's happening in Paris. In late 2020, in a suburb of Paris, a male public school teacher was beheaded, decapitated by an 18-year-old Islamic terrorist. The teacher had allegedly shown students some cartoons depicting the Prophet Muhammad as part of a lesson on free speech. The murderer took a photo of the teacher's corpse and posted it on Twitter with a statement claiming responsibility, quote, "in the name of Allah." That's how you teach diversity, kids. That's how you teach freedom of speech. Maybe we have too much freedom of speech because he showed them a cartoon. Over 260 French citizens have been killed in terrorist attacks since 2012. France's Ministry of the Interior stated there were almost 1,000 anti-Christian hate crimes in France in 23 alone. Earlier this year, a cemetery in southwest France was vandalized with graffiti written in French and Arabic. The messages include, quote, "submit to Allah," and "France is already Allah's." In May, at a church in western France, benches were set on fire and a statue of Mary was beheaded. Last week, in a town in northern France, an arsonist burned down another church. This one was built in the 1800s. Police suspect arson. Apparently, burning down churches has been a frequent occurrence in France for several years now. In 2021, the president of the Paris-based Observatory of Religious Heritage reported that a church is destroyed in France every 2 weeks, with 2/3 of them caused by arson. Wow, maybe it's global warming. Meanwhile, he said a new mosque is built every 15 days in France. There are around 6.7 million Muslims in France, about 10% of the French population. Now, this is where it gets dicey for the globalist progressives. How do you keep the immigration flowing while also trying to defend against terrorist attacks like public school teachers being beheaded and, churches being burned down? I know. Government regulation. Sure, guys, that'll fix it. Listen to this description of President Macron's plan to reform Islam in France. See if any part sounds vaguely familiar to you. Quote, "The centerpiece of Macron's proposal is to certify and train imams in France. The proposed measures also include offering Arabic instruction in public schools, tightening control on private religious education, limiting homeschooling, and cracking down on speech and activities that contradict so-called French Republican values, such as gender-segregated hours at municipal swimming pools." I get it. And the Muslims are going to line up for the government teaching the imams. They're going to love it, and everything's going to change. They've been like this for almost 2,000 years. Yeah, they're going to change on a dime. Across Europe, churches are closing in droves. They're being converted into gyms, restaurants, hotels, and nightclubs. Well, there's no definite account or definitive account on the number of mosques that open in Europe every year. A 2019 book by two French journalists called The Qatar Papers, How Doha Finances the Muslim Brotherhood in Europe, revealed that the Qatar Charity, an NGO run by the Qatari royal family, has spent over $80 million in recent years to fund 140 mosques and Islamic center projects across Europe. Meanwhile, in Germany alone, 650 Catholic churches have closed down since 2005. Germany has an estimated 2,800 mosques and 4.6 million Muslims who make up just over 5.5% of the overall German population. Go team go, I think is what they're saying. That was an Islamist rally. Over 1,000 people in Hamburg in April this year. They got together. They were also calling for an Islamic caliphate. Where have I heard that word before? And Sharia law. Who doesn't love that? Well, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he reacted to the rally by saying there would be consequences. Ooh, that terrified the group that was calling for Sharia law. Oh, what is he going to do? Germany's most recent terror-related crisis happened a few weeks ago at the Festival of Diversity. Yeah, it's in a small town in Germany. A 26-year-old asylum seeker from Syria stabbed and killed 3 people and wounded 8 others. Those damn knives. Now, he was supposed to be deported in 2023, but they couldn't get around to it. The suspect was arrested, reportedly confessed to the crime. He's also reportedly a member of ISIS. Now, ISIS did claim responsibility for the attack in a statement, saying the attacker targeted Christians as a, quote, soldier of the Islamic State, seeking to avenge Muslims in Palestine and everywhere. Boy, oh boy, what do you think they have planned for us here? You know who could stop it? The Gays for Palestinians. They love those people. Yes. Are you mad? They're coming for you and Hollywood and all of the immoral people first. Then they'll get to the churches to burn them down to the ground. The leader of the center-right Christian Democratic Union Party said, quote, after the recent terrorist attack, it should now be clear it's not the knives that are the problem. What? But the people who carry them around. In the majority of cases, these are refugees. From what country are they refugees from? And in the majority of the crimes, Islamist motives are behind them. Now that took Germany by shock. Immigrants make up around 15% of Germany's population, but they were responsible for a record 41% of criminal activity in 2023. Now, how did Germany get to this point? Well, in 2015, the then German Chancellor Angela Merkel committed her nation to accept 1 million refugees. And the crowd went wild. Everybody was thrilled. Primarily, they were from Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq. What could go wrong? But as national polling confirmed in the months after Merkel threw open Germany's doors, most Germans didn't want the massive influx of immigrants. Thought it kind of changed their neighborhood and brought it down a little bit. Almost a decade later, Germany is reaping the consequences. Germany's failure to deport the Syrian man who murdered 3 people at a small-town festival is not an isolated incident. All the major Western European powers fail to keep up with deportations, consequently deal with the problems of repeat offenders. What could go wrong with 73% of a population being male? In France, of the illegal immigrants who are ordered to leave, only 7% actually do. Now, who could have seen this coming? And who would be stupid enough to say this is happening and coming to a theater very near you in America? Even the New York Times admitted it last week in a report about a 24-year-old Nicaraguan migrant who was accused of rape. What? They're good people. The federal ICE agency claims they had intended to deport the man when he was first charged with rape. But when his alleged victim declined to testify, he agreed to plead guilty and it was a felony assault charge, not rape. So he was released the same day. Are you out of your mind? He was here illegally. I don't care. He did the crime. He pleads guilty to a lesser crime. Get his ass on an airplane far away from America. His case fell through the cracks. They were going to do that. But New York City, it's a sanctuary city. So ICE wasn't notified that he was back on the streets. Last month, he allegedly raped another woman at knife point. He's since been caught and indicted and is now jailed in Rikers Island. Oh, good. I'm glad we're paying for the rest of his life. The same self-destructive agenda being carried out by the globalist-progressive leaders in Europe is being followed by the Democratic Party in the U.S. We are barreling down the exact same path. And it's not just my opinion. Even common sense Europeans are pointing out the obvious truth. Here's an op-ed. It was earlier this year. It was titled, "Europe is Finished." That's the editor of London's Sunday Telegraph. There's no way back for a European continent that has embraced nihilism, post-Christian paganism, illiberalism, and the politics of envy, that believes that saving the planet requires shutting down successful industries and impoverishing its own people, that cannot face down Islamist extremists and anti-Semitism, and that won't reform its welfare state. Gee, I don't think I could have said it better. If he hadn't said European continent, you would have thought he was describing the United States now, wouldn't you? Back in a minute with another European problem that the American left is trying to emulate. I'm sorry, we debated last week whether we were going to do something on the debate, and I said, I don't think by the end of the day I don't think I could do it. But it was really important what happened last night, and even more so that you get out and vote. Because if Kamala Harris wins, she is so vile on her love and bloodlust for killing babies that I don't think we're going to be able to speak about abortion. I think all of these things. I was with the people at Preborn. Was it last weekend? Yeah, last weekend before the Tucker Carlson thing. I was doing a fundraiser with them. And one of them leaned next to me and said, Glenn, if we're debanked, what do? I mean, that was out of the blue. They're thinking, because they know what is coming. Please vote. And while you're doing that, please bring honor and favor on our people by saving God's children. And that's both the baby and the mom. Would you be willing to just pay for an ultrasound? One ultrasound. It's $28 per ultrasound. That doubles the chances of life. You can donate by dialing pound 250, say the keyword baby. Give your $28. That will go for an ultrasound of a woman who's thinking about having an abortion. She sees the baby on the ultrasound. She hears the heartbeat, and things change. Please, will you donate? Pound 250, keyword baby. Or you can go to preborn.com/Glenn. In German state parliament elections just 2 weeks ago, the AfD party, which stands for Alternative for Deutschland, won its first election with almost 1/3 of the vote. In a neighboring state, the AfD finished a close second. 36% of the voters under 30 voted for AfD, far more than any other party. Now, according to the BBC, the top issue for German voters was immigration and what to do about refugees and asylum. Sounds familiar, like maybe 80 years ago. The immediate reaction from mainstream media was alarm that a far-right party had won an election in Germany for the first time since 1945. Well, yeah, maybe a far-right party. I don't know. It was formed in 2013, mostly in opposition to the euro and to Germany's bailout of southern European nations. But then came Angela Merkel's open borders immigration avalanche in 2015, which the AfD strongly opposed. Now, what the success of AfD says about regular citizens is that they are fed up with globalist-progressive agenda being crammed down their throats all the time and no one doing anything about it. No one representing the people. And an unfortunate reality is when ruling elites are not responsible to the dissatisfaction of their constituents, sometimes in desperation, those constituents move towards more radical left or radical right fringe parties. A 21-year-old German male voter told CNN, quote, "The AfD is the only alternative we have left here in Germany." Sounds familiar again. Trying to compare left versus right in American and European politics has never been an exact science, but the parallels are now clearer than they've ever been before because of the common agenda shared by American and European and British progressives. Both Europe and the U.S. have a ruling class of politicians, businesses, and union leaders, academics, and the mainstream media. This ruling class has lost sight of the regular people and their concerns. These ruling classes in Europe and the U.S. share a dangerous trait: zero tolerance for dissent from the agenda. Rather than reevaluating their own agenda based on concerns of regular citizens, the ruling class defaults to censorship. So that's why in July, the EU formally charged Elon Musk with allowing what they consider to be disinformation to spread on X. It was the first charge under the EU's vaguely worded Digital Services Act. It's why Emmanuel Macron suggested that his government should have the right to block social media during riots. It's why the UK has been arresting citizens for just posting memes and footage related to the recent riots there. These are all major warning signs. Some of the world's biggest so-called democracies, including Brazil, are dipping into authoritarian tactics when democracy dares defy the ruling class. I am going to talk to a man I'm proud to call a friend. He's a Scottish historian and a broadcaster. His name is Neil Oliver. Get his insight on what exactly is happening in Europe and the UK next. So I don't know if you heard about the cyber scammers on the news. They tried to steal Graceland from Elvis Presley's family. Yeah, it didn't work because they didn't know what Graceland was. And when they said Graceland had lost its title because it wasn't paying some bills, everybody went, wait a minute, what? If you're a homeowner like me, nobody knows what your house is, even if they're next door neighbors. You lose your house, nobody's going to be like, that's Graceland, that can't happen. When was the last time you checked the title on your home? A new report shows there's $16 trillion available in equity in all of our homes, an all-time high right now. That's why you need protection from a new cyber scam, where the equity of our home is the target. If nobody is watching, scammers can transfer your home title into their name, take out fraudulent loans, steal your equity, and leave you with a nightmare. Protect your equity from this despicable crime right now with triple lock protection from our friends at HomeTitleLock.com. Make sure your home's title is still in your name. All you have to do is sign up with your home address, and HomeTitleLock.com will make sure to check it for you. You're going to get you'll receive a complete title scan of your home's title. And your first 30 days of their triple home lock title protection is free. So do this now. It's HomeTitleLock.com. Promo code BLAZE. That's promo code BLAZE, HomeTitleLock.com. Joining me now is Scottish author, historian, and broadcaster Neil Oliver. He's a friend of mine who has written 14 books and hosted numerous TV series and specials for the BBC and GB News, where he is now. Neil, I don't know which one of us is going to go to prison first for thought crimes. We're close on your heels. Tell me first of all, give me an idea of the election results in Germany, because it's hard to sort out the good guys from the bad guys, at least here in America.
Well, hi, Glenn. First of all, it's just lovely to see you. So it's like in the old days of like Radioham reaching out for survivors after a disaster and finally making contact with a friendly voice. Oh, there's somebody else. There you are. Well, yeah, the elections in Germany were very interesting. I mean, apart from anything else, the mere fact that by now so many of us are, say in the United Kingdom of Great Britain, are paying attention assiduously to something like the regional elections in Germany is of interest in and of itself. That was something of the minutiae of the governance of another country that we just wouldn't have, and none of us would have paid much attention to it. But there we go. It was being watched very carefully. And sure as God made little green apples, the population, much of the population, certainly in the east of Germany, opted to vote for AfD, which is Alternative for Germany, which is, by any rational estimate, is a centrist party. Okay. You would have seen them standing in the past, I suppose, on rule of law. They wanted safe borders, control on immigration. They protest about plummeting standards of living for the average German citizen, but they are caricatured and smeared as far right, as extreme, as Nazis, and yet in blocks of territory in the east of Germany, they were polling like 3 times as much as the parties that are presently in government. Unbelievable. It's a complicated system in Germany. They have to bring together groups to create governments. But in any of it, and the German Chancellor Scholz has had the audacity to say that a vote for AfD is anti-democratic.
Oh, yeah, well, we're going through this. We're going through exactly the same thing here with our election. Let me switch to the United Kingdom. Are these people that are walking around that are being arrested, are they terrorists? Are they, thugs and bad guys? Or are they good guys? What is happening?
They're just people. They are just people. I mean, of course. I mean, when it comes, there will have been moments during, whatever protest. There will have been moments when people have done, I don't know, things that are already covered by existing laws. But the people that you're talking about are general members of the public. People like me, people in their 50s, people in their 60s. Who have simply gone onto social media platforms like Facebook and the rest and voiced concern, voiced opposition, had the temerity or the audacity to say that they don't like the idea of their communities being overwhelmed by uncontrolled immigration, that they don't like to see two-tier policing, where if you attend one sort of protest, it's fine. If you attend another sort of protest, you get your arm put up your back and thrown into the back of a black van and you get processed in 24, 48 hours. And people who have been they're being called, they're laughingly described as armchair rioters. People that are working from behind their screens, putting out posts on Facebook, and within 24 hours, the police or whoever else turns up at the door, and these people are being processed as though they were far-right extremists, as though they were dangerous to society. And the crucial thing is as well, thousands of people are being freed. Violent people among them are being freed early from prisons to make space in the jails, so that people who are posting hurty words on social media can take their place in the cells.
So, help me out. Are people standing up against this? Are they just saying we're gonna have to shut up and take it? What's the future hold?
I think increasingly, Glenn, people are if people are standing up. People are speaking out. And I think that is the problem for these totalitarian authoritarians that are out there trying to live the dream of dictatorship. But even where people aren't speaking out, it's undeniable now what's going on. The mask has slipped. Yeah. People can see what's going on. And even if at the moment they are not taking to the streets and they're not actually embarking upon acts of civil disobedience, the point is it's palpable that people can see, ordinary people, tax-paying, law-abiding people can see what's going on. Depending on what you read, it's estimated now that something like 70% of people are getting their news not from the mainstream media, not from BBC, not from ITV. They're getting it from social media or alternative media or whatever you want to call it. When you go into the under 30s or under 35, the younger part of the demographic, it's right up at 85 and 90%. Yeah. And so the message that's being pumped out by the mainstream media is not being consumed. And people are taking on board the truth. Truth, which is smeared by the authorities as malinformation.
Neil, I'd love to have you on radio in the next few days to continue this conversation. Stay safe, my friend. Thank you so much. From Dallas, may God save the Republic.